The secret behind Japan's most beautiful gardens isn't what they add, it's what they deliberately leave out. Traditional Japanese garden design follows a philosophy where removing unnecessary elements creates healthier, calmer, and far easier to maintain landscapes. We're counting down 15 surprising things rarely found in these gardens, and why avoiding each one solves common problems Western homeowners struggle with every season. From familiar yard habits to deep design principles, this list builds toward a #1 mission that completely changes how you think about building and maintaining a garden. Let's start with the most widespread Western default at number 15. In the 15th place, large empty lawns define the classic Western approach to landscaping, but they're almost never found in traditional Japanese gardens. Instead of broad stretches of turf that require constant mowing, watering, and fertilizing, Japanese design prefers moss, gravel, stone, and carefully placed plant pockets. These materials create structure and visual calm with far less upkeep. Lawns demand regular edging and chemical treatments, making them one of the most labor-intensive features in a garden. By limiting turf or replacing it entirely, Japanese gardens turn even small yards into peaceful, intentional spaces. Moss thrives in shady, moist areas and needs little intervention, while gravel and stone allow rainwater to drain naturally. The absence of large lawns isn't just about aesthetics, it's a practical choice that saves time, conserves water, and encourages a slower, more mindful experience outdoors. In the 14th place, bright artificial decorations rarely appear in Japanese gardens. Instead of plastic gnomes, flamingos, or novelty statues found in many Western yards, Japanese landscapes rely on materials like stone, bamboo, and wood, elements that age gracefully and deepen in character over time. An oribi lantern at Kenroku-en, for example, stands as a symbol of timelessness, weathering with each season rather than fading or cracking like synthetic ornaments. This preference reflects the principle of wabi-sabi, where beauty comes from restraint and the quiet dignity of natural aging. By omitting manufactured brightness, Japanese gardens avoid trends that quickly date a space and instead create a setting that feels calm, enduring, and deeply connected to the rhythms of nature. In the 13th place, perfectly straight flower beds are almost never part of the Japanese garden vocabulary. Instead of crisp rectangular borders found in many Western public parks, Japanese gardens favor lines that meander and flow, echoing the way nature shapes a riverbank or woodland edge. This approach softens boundaries and encourages the eye to wander, creating a sense of discovery rather than enclosure. Curved planting beds guide visitors gently through the space, making even small gardens feel expansive and inviting. Saihoji, Kyoto's celebrated moss temple, offers a classic example. Its mossy carpets follow the natural lay of the land, with no sign of rigid geometry. By skipping the ruler-straight approach, Japanese gardens reinforce the idea that peace comes from working with nature's organic movement, not imposing artificial order. The result is a landscape that feels timeless, calming, and quietly alive. In the 12th place, excessive flower displays are set aside in Japanese gardens, challenging the idea that non-stop bloom is the hallmark of a beautiful landscape. Rather than filling every bed with hybrid tea roses or tulip spectacles, these gardens rely on the quiet strength of foliage, textured bark, moss, and the sculptural lines of branches. The result is a composition that feels complete even when flowers are absent, offering subtle interest through every season. Instead of chasing short-lived bursts of color, Japanese gardens balance the visual weight of each element, ensuring that the landscape remains engaging year-round. This approach values continuity over spectacle, allowing the garden to evolve gently with the seasons rather than depending on constant replanting or displays. By focusing on structure and seasonal change, Japanese gardens create a calm, enduring beauty that doesn't fade when the last petal drops. In the 11th place, concrete patios and walkways form a familiar backbone of Western gardens, but their presence is almost invisible in Japanese landscapes. Instead, stone, gravel, and wood dominate the ground plane, creating surfaces that look softer and feel more connected to nature. These permeable materials allow rainwater to soak in, reducing runoff and helping plants thrive with less intervention. At the Katsura Imperial Villa, pathways of natural stone and compacted earth blend seamlessly with the surrounding garden, making the entire space feel unified rather than divided by hard, sealed slabs. The choice to avoid concrete is both practical and philosophical. It keeps maintenance simple, supports healthy drainage, and preserves the sense of flow that defines Japanese garden design. By favoring materials that age gracefully and work with the climate, Japanese gardens achieve a quiet harmony that concrete simply cannot match. In the 10th place, crowded planting marks the point where restraint in Japanese gardens becomes a matter of plant health, not just aesthetics. Instead of lining up shrubs shoulder to shoulder or pressing them against walls, each tree or bush is given space to reach its full shape. This careful spacing is more than visual. It allows air to move freely between leaves, lowering the risk of fungal diseases and keeping foliage dry after rain. Studies in ornamental gardens show that doubling the space between plants can cut mildew rates by nearly a third. In tea gardens, a single camellia or pine might stand alone, transformed into a focal point simply by the empty ground around it. The result is a garden where every plant has its moment, and maintenance is easier because pruning and cleaning are less of a battle. For homeowners used to dense hedges, this approach offers a practical lesson. Sometimes, the healthiest garden is one where less is truly more. Number 9. Constant bright colors. Rarely find a place in Japanese gardens. Instead of the vivid annual borders and non-stop chroma that dominate many Western landscapes, these gardens rely on a palette of greens, browns, grays, and the occasional muted accent that shifts gently with the seasons. The result is a visual calm that lets the eye rest, reducing fatigue and creating a mood that feels both alive and balanced. Even in spring, when cherry blossoms or irises come into bloom, their color is framed by subdued foliage and natural textures, never overwhelming the senses. This quieter approach to color isn't accidental. It's a deliberate choice that supports the broader philosophy of restraint and contemplation. By leaving out the riot of constant brightness, Japanese gardens offer a calming environment where every subtle shift in light or leaf becomes more noticeable, inviting viewers to slow down and appreciate the world in softer focus. 8th place, high-maintenance exotic plants rarely make an appearance in Japanese gardens. Instead of filling borders with tropicals that need winter protection or constant rescue, the focus is on species that naturally thrive in local conditions. Japanese maples, azaleas, and camellias that handle the climate without extra fuss. This approach is not just about tradition, it is a strategy that saves water, reduces pest problems, and cuts down on the time spent tending to struggling plants. Studies show that landscapes built around native or climate-adapted species can use 30 to 70% less irrigation than gardens with imported ornamentals. By choosing plants that belong, Japanese gardens sidestep the cycle of replanting and chemical treatments that often comes with exotic collections. The result is a space that endures through the seasons, stays healthier with less intervention, and rewards the gardener with both beauty and peace of mind. For homeowners, it is a lesson in how restraint can lead to long-term survival and savings. Number 7. Large formal hedges rarely shape the boundaries of Japanese gardens. Instead of towering boxwood walls or the clipped green partitions seen at places like Hidcote Manor or Versailles, Japanese landscapes favor a softer, more natural approach to pruning. Techniques such as kerikomi, where shrubs are rounded or gently cloud-pruned, create living forms that flow with the garden's contours rather than imposing rigid lines. At Shitenoji in Osaka, carefully shaped azaleas offer definition without turning into barriers. This kind of pruning highlights the plant's vitality, allowing subtle changes in growth and light to become part of the garden's atmosphere. The absence of severe hedging is more than a stylistic choice. It's rooted in the philosophy of wabi-sabi, which values imperfection and the quiet passage of time. By letting shrubs breathe and shift with the seasons, Japanese gardens encourage long-term plant health and a sense of calm that rigid green walls simply can't match. Number 6. Decorative clutter is quietly absent from Japanese gardens, where every object is chosen with intention. Instead of bird baths, wind spinners, or fairy doors scattered as afterthoughts, Japanese landscapes reserve space for elements that guide movement, mark a threshold, or serve a practical role. A chozubachi, the simple stone basin used for ritual hand-washing, is a classic example. Its presence signals a pause and deepens the experience of the garden. By limiting objects to those with meaning or function, the garden's composition gains strength and clarity. Fewer items mean less cleaning, less rearranging, and fewer replacements over time. The result is a space where each stone, lantern, or basin stands out, drawing the eye and the mind to what matters. In this approach, less is not just a style but a rule that shapes both the garden's beauty and its ease of care. Number 5. Massive water features rarely define the heart of a Japanese garden. Instead of sprawling fountains with pumps, lights, and engineered cascades, these landscapes favor modest ponds, gentle streams, and stone basins that invite quiet reflection. The difference in scale is more than visual. Large fountains often dominate a space, their noise and movement overshadowing subtle details and demanding constant upkeep. At Ritsuren Park in Takamatsu, still water mirrors the sky and surrounding pines, creating a sense of depth without spectacle. Smaller water features require less energy, fewer chemicals, and minimal cleaning, making them both environmentally and emotionally sustainable. Where Western gardens may use water as a showpiece, Japanese design lets it support tranquility, not overpower it. By keeping water features intimate and restrained, the garden remains a place of calm, reducing both visual clutter and the workload that comes with managing large installations. Number 4. Symmetrical layouts rarely set the tone in Japanese gardens. Instead of the mirror image planting beds and geometric axes found in places like Versailles, Japanese design leans into balance without exact repetition. Each view changes as you move, offering shifting perspectives rather than a single frozen tableau. At Kairakuen, for example, the garden unfolds gradually. Paths curve, trees cluster in uneven groups, and borrowed scenery from distant hills blurs the garden's edge. This approach creates a living composition where asymmetry invites exploration and the mind stays engaged. The principle is rooted in the idea that nature itself is never perfectly even, and that true harmony comes from a dynamic, responsive order. While Western gardens often use symmetry to signal control and grandeur, Japanese gardens let irregularity guide the experience, making the space feel more natural and alive. By omitting rigid symmetry, the garden becomes a place of discovery, not just display. Number 3. Bare exposed soil is nearly invisible in a traditional Japanese garden, and that absence is no accident. Where Western beds often leave patches of earth exposed, inviting weeds, quick evaporation, and erosion, Japanese design treats the ground as a canvas to be cared for, not neglected. Instead of naked dirt, gravel, moss, ground covers, or a layer of mulch shield the soil from sun and rain. This simple choice does more than look tidy. Moss and ground covers hold moisture, cutting down on watering, while gravel and mulch suppress weed growth by blocking light and forming a physical barrier. Erosion, a constant challenge on sloped or heavy rain sites, is held in check by these protective layers. Studies show that gardens with continuous ground cover can reduce weed emergence by up to 70% compared to bare soil. In Japanese gardens, the surface beneath the plants becomes an intentional part of the design, supporting both the health of the garden and the sense of tranquility that defines the space. Number 2. Gardens designed only for appearance stand apart as a lesson in what Japanese landscapes quietly refuse. In many Western settings, show gardens are rebuilt each year for maximum visual impact. Beds replanted, annuals swapped out, and decorative features added for effect. Japanese gardens, by contrast, rarely separate beauty from use. Every stone, path, and plant is chosen not just for how it looks, but for what it does. Stepping stones define movement and guide visitors, while trees and shrubs frame views, offer shade, or direct rainwater away from walkways. Even the placement of gravel and moss is a strategic decision, supporting drainage and reducing maintenance over time. This philosophy turns the garden into a living system where function and form are inseparable. The absence of purely ornamental features isn't a lack, but a deliberate move toward a landscape that matures gracefully, needs less intervention, and feels more deeply connected to both nature and daily life. In this way, Japanese gardens reveal that lasting beauty comes not from adding more, but from making sure every element earns its place. And finally, in first place, the impulse to fill every empty space stands as the defining omission at the heart of Japanese garden philosophy. Where many Western gardens crowd every corner with plants, ornaments, or hardscape, Japanese design embraces the concept of ma, the purposeful interval that gives shape to silence and lets each element breathe. This isn't emptiness by accident, but a carefully cultivated pause that brings balance and focus to the entire landscape. At Ryoan-ji in Kyoto, the famed raked gravel ocean stretches wide and open, with only 15 stones rising from its surface. Here, the absence of clutter is not a gap to be filled, but the very feature that commands attention, inviting the mind to settle and the eye to wander. Japanese gardens draw on centuries of Zen and Shinto influence, turning restraint into an art form, and revealing how space itself can be the most powerful element of all. For Western gardeners, this is often the biggest mindset shift. Learning that what's left open can make a space feel larger, more elegant, and far easier to care for. By letting go of the urge to fill every patch of ground, the garden becomes a place of calm, clarity, and lasting beauty. Across all 15 omissions, one insight stands out. True garden beauty thrives in restraint, not in abundance. By choosing what to leave out, Japanese design creates spaces that breathe, calm, healthy, and timeless. The lesson is clear. Subtraction invites serenity, while overdesign crowds it out. Sometimes the most powerful act in landscaping is knowing when to stop. For more insights, subscribe and join us on the journey to quieter gardens.